location of the heart in the pericardium. Now let's move towards another. Uh, See, now the structure shows it is three chamber, consist of single ventricle and two auricles. Now, if you study the sectional view of the heart, here it is very much visible. You can see the single. This is the location. See, this is the right and left auricles in the sectional view, and you will find this is the location of the ventricle, which is, and all this structure is surrounded by the pericardial cavity. So this is the pericardial cavity, which is surrounding a single ventricle as well as these two right and left auricles. So both this auricle and single auricles and single ventricle is completely covered by the pericardium. Now each auricle opens into ventricle dorsally. As I mentioned earlier, that this auricle opens into ventricle dorsally by the auriculoventricular aperture. Here it is, which I have shown here. See, this is the auriculoventricular aperture, which is visible. Now the auricle receives blood from. Now during the course, while studying the course of circulation, you will come to know how the auricle receives blood from the gills, kidneys, and the mantle, and pours it into ventricle. So the auricle receive it's you can, other words you can say it's a receiving chamber. Ventricle is thick-walled, large muscular chamber surrounds the rectum. See, this is the ventricle, and this is the digestive part of the digestive system, which is passing through the ventricle, and this is one of the unique feature of the bivalve. So very interesting point to be remembered, that in no other animal you will find the rectum is passing through ventricle, but here, because of the very important peculiarity of torsion, mechanism of torsion in bivalves or in the gastropod, in this mollusks, because of that reason, the rectum, you can say, it is passing through the then ventricle pumps blood to the heart beats. Now, this is the point. This is the question of multiple choice, where it beats about 20 to 100 times per minute. Now, how actually? So this is the diagram. This is the diagram, and this is the picture which is in the book, which actually shows the location of the heart in the pericardium, as well as its see. Third is the part is the arteries. Now, one by one, we shall be discussing on this, and I will be showing the location of these arteries actually in the diagram. The ventricle pumps the blood forward through the two main aorta, that is forward by the anterior aorta and backward by the posterior aorta. So I will show you the locations here. See, this is the ventricle, this is the anterior aorta, this is the posterior aorta. One is running forward, one is running backward. So once the blood is coming in the ventricle, and when the ventricle contracts, it passes the blood into these two respective aorta. One is anterior aorta and another one is the posterior aorta. Now, what are the different branches of the anterior aorta that we are going to study? So further it is divided into different branches, and the very first branch is the anterior pallial artery. Now the word pallial is referred to the mantle lobes. So whatever pallial arteries are there. Now in this diagram, I will show you the, see, this is the location of the anterior aorta. See, this is the anterior aorta, and see, this is the anterior pallial artery. This is the anterior pallial artery. Likewise, here also posterior aorta is also there. The posterior pallial artery is also there. But as we are concentrating on the anterior aorta, first of all we will discuss on the anterior pallial artery, and it is supplying blood to the mantle, anterior mantle lobe. And you know what is the mental lobe. Mental lobe or the character, the organs which are actually covering the interior of the shell up to the limits of the pallial line. They also play a role up to some extent in the process of respiration. So this mental artery is supplying blood to the mental lobes. Second one is the pedal artery. As the name itself indicates, pedal means it supplies blood to the foot. See here. Here is the location of the, and here this is the pedal artery. Here you can also see, which is shown in the red in color. See, this is the anterior pallial artery, which is shown in the red in color in the diagram which I have sketched. And this is the diagram which is present actually in the blood to the foot. This is the anterior pallial artery, further it breaks down into capillaries and supplies blood to the anterior metal lobe. Okay. Now next is the visceral artery. Now the visceral means supplying to the different visceral organs, and further it gives different branches. Now which are these branches? One by one we shall know. So very first thing is to know is that where is the location of this visceral artery. So let's come back here again and you will find the location. See, visceral artery. This is the location of the visceral artery. Here anterior aorta gives branches such as pallial artery, pedal artery, and the visceral artery. Again, I will show in this diagram. This is the pallial artery, this is the pedal artery, and this is the visceral artery. Now, further we are going to deal with the different branches of the visceral artery. The visceral artery breaks down into, it gives branch, gastric branch to the stomach, hepatic branch to digestive glands, intestinal branch to the intestine, and the genital branch to the gonads. Now let's see all these branches in the diagram. See, first is the gastric artery, then comes the hepatic artery, gastric to the stomach, hepatic to the glands, digestive glands, then comes the intestinal artery to the intestinal coils, then comes the genital artery to the gonads. So these are the four branches of the visceral artery which is supplying to the stomach as a gastric artery, then to the digestive glands as a hepatic artery, then to the intestine to the as an intestinal artery, and to the gonads through the genital artery. So this is what we have discussed on the different types of artery. Now let's go to the another part, that is a posterior aorta. As I have mentioned, I have shown you that this is the location of the posterior aorta. Here also you will find this is the posterior aorta. Here this is the which is shown in the red is the posterior aorta. Now we will discuss or we will see the branches of this posterior aorta. Posterior aorta gives the following. Very first branch immediately after its emergence is the pericardial artery. Now this pericardial artery is supplying, as the name itself indicates, that it is supplying to the pericardium. Let's see the location in the diagram. See, it is not much visible here in the diagram which is shown in the book, but here you can see. See, this is this is posterior, and immediately after here, immediately after its emergence, you will find this is the pericardial artery supplying blood to the pericardium. So, can you see this small tiny artery which is supplying blood to the pericardium? Yes. Yes. Are you able to make out this artery, small artery? Nikita?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, yeah, that's fine. Now, next one is the renal artery. Renal means to kidney. Now, let's search for the renal artery here. See, this is the renal artery. See, this is the renal artery running, and this is the this is the location. This is the location of the kidney. So this is dorsal loop, and this is the ventral. This is the location of the kidney, and you see this is the reddish branch which is running from this posterior uh, aorta towards the kidney and supplying blood to the kidney. Then next one is the rectal artery to the rectum. See, yeah, now this rectal artery is visible here in the diagram here. See, this is the rectal artery, and here you can see this is the rectal artery, small tiny artery. This is the rectum which is shown here. This is the rectum which is shown, which is opening in the form of anus in the exhalent siphon, because it has to throw out the undigested food materials with the outgoing water current. Okay. And then finally, as I had mentioned earlier, that there is the posterior aorta is also supplying blood to the mantle in the form of the perineal artery. So here is the larger one artery which breaks down again into capillaries, and this is the posterior perineal artery, which is also visible here in the posterior perineal artery. Yes, this is the posterior perineal artery. So this is the entire uh, posterior aorta giving these four different branches. Okay. Now let's move further, and we'll be discussing on the veins. Sorry. This is the another part, that is sinuses, as I mentioned. These are the small spaces which are found. The arteries breaks into the network of the vessels all over the body. Then they lead to the irregular cavity spaces, and these cavities and spaces are called as blood sinuses. Blood gets accumulated in these blood sinuses and pours directly into the sinuses, pour blood directly into the veins. So whatever fragmentation of the arteries that takes place in the form of a capillary network, in this network is it is not uniting in the form of another capillaries as in case of the higher animals, but instead they are directly opening into the blood sinuses, and these blood sinuses they forms the veins or venules. These veins, then their blood is further it is collected. So now how the veins are formed. Now veins, as these are the which carry the deoxygenated blood from the different parts of body, which collected by the veins, and the veins, the different types of veins are as follows. Veins, visceral vein. Now see the location. This is the visceral vein. In this also, this is the location of the visceral veins. Now here in the diagram, which veins are shown in the dark black in color. Here the veins in this diagram, the veins are shown in the blue color. But here we are talking about the visceral vein, and here is the location of the visceral vein. But how this visceral vein is formed? It is actually formed by the union of the different types of veins which are collecting blood from the different organs. So that is why by the union of all these veins, finally the visceral vein is formed. So let's see one by one how these veins are formed. Veins, visceral vein collects blood from the various visceral organs. Now, which are these different organs which are collected? One is the genital, collecting blood from the gonads. See, genital vein. As it is supplied by the genital artery, blood is collected by the genital vein. So this is see the very tiny vein among the gonads. This is the genital vein collecting blood from the gonads. It runs again. It is joined by the intestinal vein collecting blood from the intestine. So this is intestinal vein. Then further it is joined by the gastric vein collecting blood from the, see, this is the gastric vein collecting blood from the intestinal, and gastric vein collecting blood from the stomach, and finally it continues. Sorry, it also it is also joined by the pedal vein. This is the pedal vein collecting blood from the foot, and finally this is the visceral vein. So in this diagram also you will find, see, this is the pedal vein, and finally this visceral vein opens finally into the large vein. What this large vein is called as. See, it collects the blood from the foot, and this is opens into the large, which is called as vena cava. See this location of the vena cava. This is the large vein. So all whatever blood is collected, finally it's carried by this vena cava. The pedal vein joins visceral. Pedal vein joins visceral vein to form vena cava. This is the vena cava. It runs between the kidneys. See how it is. This is the location of kidney. This is the two lobes. This is the location of kidney. It runs into the middle part of the kidney. It supplies blood to the kidney. Very important. Now see, this is kidney and this is afferent renal veins. Afferent. And when we use the word afferent, that means it is supplying blood to. When we say use the word efferent, it is collecting blood from. So here the organ is kidney and the afferent and efferent veins are there. These afferent veins are supplying blood to the kidney. This blood is deoxygenated to the kidney and efferent renal vein. See, the blood from kidneys is collected by the efferent renal veins. Efferent. See, another you will find these are the efferent renal veins. They are collecting blood from the kidneys. The blood from the kidney is collected by the efferent renal veins. So efferent renal veins. Now where do this blood goes? Which unite to form a pair of afferent cnidial. बघा. Again it forms the pair. दोन्हीकडे एकाच बाजूने बघतोय आपण. See, this is the afferent टिनिडियल. बघा, टिनिडियल म्हणजे गिल्सशी संबंधित आहे. सप्लाय कुठे करते? गिल्सला. गिल्सला गेले की काय होणार आहे? गिल्स मध्ये पाणी, काय वॉटर ट्यूब्स मध्ये पाणी असते. Isn't it? Where do the blood this water comes into the gills? Yes, we have studied the respiratory system. From where do the water enters into the gills? Yes,
suprabranchial chamber.
Entering into the gills, I am asking. From where it enters into the gills?
Through ostia.
Yes, you are right. And it is going out, coming into the suprabranchial chamber. It is on the way to go out. Okay. So whenever water is continuously entering into the gills through the ostia, gills are supplied with the deoxygenated blood by the afferent veins. So blood gets, due to the pressure difference, the blood gets oxygenated, and again this oxygenation takes place, and oxygenated blood, some renal veins carry blood to the auricles through the efferent cnidial veins. So some of these, बघा इथलं हे जे efferent आहे, efferent cnidial blood is collected by the efferent renals, and they are further collected by the efferent cnidial, and this efferent cnidial is running anteriorly and opening into the auricle. Can you see this journey of the blood? Blood is supplied to the gills to the afferent cnidial, collected by the efferent cnidial, and this efferent cnidial vein, which is running, carrying blood to the auricle. Okay. Now another vein is the posterior pallial vein. See, posterior pallial vein collects oxygenated blood from the mental. As we have mentioned, that pallial also plays role in the process of oxygenation and respiration. So kidney and mental are the organs which are playing role in the respiration. So see this posterior pallial vein. So, as it is supplied by the posterior pallial artery to the mental lobes, and blood from the mental lobes, oxygenated blood from the mental lobe, it is collected by posterior pallial vein. See, this posterior pallial vein is also running to the auricle. Finally, it is going into the auricle. Okay. See. Now, the course of circulation. Now, one by one, we will be discussing on this. Now, what is the role of ventricle? Ventricle pumps the blood forward and back through anterior and posterior aorta. As we have already mentioned here. See, see this. This is the anterior aorta and this is the posterior aorta, location of the ventricle. Forward and backward blood is supplied by the aorta, respective aorta, that is anterior and the posterior aorta. Anterior aorta supplies blood to the mantle by, as mentioned, by the anterior palaeal artery. See, by the anterior palaeal artery, then to the visceral organs, to the visceral artery. See, this is the visceral artery, the visceral organs, then by visceral artery to the foot by the pedal artery. See, supplying blood to the foot. See, this is the location of the pedal artery to the foot. The blood is collected by the vena cava. Blood is collected by the vena cava. कुठून तर हे सगळ्या विसरल ऑर्गन्स पासून फूट पासून परत वेगवेगळ्या formed by the union of visceral and pedal. Formed by the union. So this is the visceral vein. This is the pedal vein. The दोन्हीचं union form काय तयार झाले vena cava. Vena cava. It passes the blood to the kidneys. Into the kidneys through afferent renal veins. The nitrogen waste products are removed. The blood from the kidney is collected by the efferent veins. As I have mentioned, they are supplying blood to the kidneys, to the afferent renal blood. The nitrogen waste products are removed in the kidney. Blood from the kidney is again collected by the efferent renal veins. So efferent renal veins collect and supply blood to the gills through afferent pterygial vein. See, परत आता हे गिल्स आहेत, गिल्सला सप्लाय केलेलं आहे afferent pterygial vein. There the oxygenation takes place, where afferent pterygial for oxygenation, the oxygenated blood from the gills is collected by the efferent pterygial vein and passes into auricle. See, this is collected by the efferent pterygial vein and it is taken to the auricle. And then to ventricle. Auricleचं ब्लड कुठं पास केलं जाते परत ventricle. Some blood from the kidneys goes directly to the auricle through efferent pterygial vein. Directly means it is shown in it will be more clear in this diagram. Some of the blood, see, some of the blood from the kidney, see, it is given, it is passed to the gills by this afferent pterygial, but some of the blood from the kidneys is given or it is taken by to the auricles directly like this, as this is moving. See, इथे दाखवलं रेडला हे काय इफरंट टिनिडियल, इफरंट टिनिडियलला हे मिळून असं हे परत डायरेक्ट या ऑरिकलमध्ये ब्लड पास केलं जातं. The oxygenated blood from the mantle is collected by the posterior palaeal vein, which opens into auricle. As I have mentioned, this is the posterior palaeal vein, which is directly going and it is opening into the posterior. This is it. It's opening into the auricle. The blood is kept circulating by proper direction by means of valves in the heart and the veins. So veins are there which are having valves inside it, and they prevent the reverse flow of the blood. So in this chart we are going to explain how the course of circulation is there. Now we have studied in the diagram. Now this is actually flow chart showing the course of circulation. Now let's concentrate here on the ventricle. The ventricle is there. This is the anteriorly, it gives anterior aorta, and posteriorly it gives the posterior aorta. From the anterior aorta, different vessels are there. One is the anterior perineal artery to the mental, then the visceral artery to the visceral organs. कुठले कुठले visceral organs आहे आपण बघितले. Stomach आहे, gastric to the stomach, intestinal to the intestine, pedal to the foot, and the genital to the gonads. So from these visceral organs, blood is collected by comes into the vena cava. From this vena cava, by the afferent renal, it is carried to the kidneys. From the kidneys, where nitrogenous waste products are removed, and after removal of the nitrogenous waste products, the blood is transformed. It is taken out by the efferent renal vein. From this efferent renal vein, the blood is supplied to the gills through the afferent tenoidal vein in the gills. Here, oxygenation of the blood takes place in the gills, and from the gills, the oxygenated blood is collected by the efferent tenoidal vein. So some of the blood from the kidney is directly it is joining this efferent tenoidal vein, as I have shown it in the diagram. See, some of the blood, see, this is the efferent tenoidal vein, but some of the blood from the kidney is collected by this, which is opening into this efferent tenoidal vein, and finally goes into the auricle. So finally it is taken, and finally it is going into auricle. So the blood which is supplied to the mantle, this mantle perineal vein, which directly pours the blood into the auricle, also blood from the mantle is collected by the posterior perineal vein. Sorry, this for posterior perineal vein, and it is directly taken to the auricle. So finally, the oxygenated blood, maybe it from the gills or maybe it from the mantle, it is finally brought into the auricle. Both the auricles, don't forget that two auricles are present on the right and left side, but both these auricles are opening into the ventricle finally by the auriculoventricular aperture. So all final oxygenated blood is brought into the ventricle, and from the ventricle again it is passed to the respective aorta. In this way, the course of circulation is completed. Okay, have you followed this?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If you have any questions regarding this, you may ask this. Otherwise, we will move on towards the next system.
Yes, sir. We can move forward.
Okay. So next system is the uh, nervous system of bio. A very tiny, but as far as the theory exam is concerned, it is having a very much importance. Nervous system, which is much reduced now because of the sluggish and sedentary mode of life. Because very sluggish movement is shown by the ball, so the nervous system is also not much more developed, but it is of ganglionated type. It is made up of three pairs of ganglions, their connectives and small nerves. So what are these different ganglia that we are going to study? First one is the cerebropleural ganglia. Now let's have a location of this. See, location of the cerebral ganglia, or collectively it is called as cerebropleural. Now, in this diagram, I will show this. This is the diagram. This is the location when you see the animal, the sectional view, uh, and if you observe it in the sideways, this is the location here. This is the location of the anterior adductor muscle. This is the location of the posterior adductor muscle, and on here you will find on the either side. This is a pair of cerebropleural ganglia. This is cerebropleural one, and this is another cerebropleural ganglia. Here you will find this is the location. Okay, cerebropleural ganglia. So these are somewhat triangular, yellowish, and about the size of a head of a pin. नाचणीच्या डोक्या इतका आकार त्याचा आकार आहे. Located at the base of the labial palms. बघा. Here is the mouth of opening is there, and opening च्या इकड साइडला काय असतात? Labial palms are there. Here is the location of this cerebropleural ganglia in the vicinity of this labial palms. Or on the either side. Each ganglia is formed by the fusion of two cerebral and pleural ganglia. So they are connected with each other by the transfer commissure, which passes over the esophagus. This is the commissure. Two, one. This is the commissure. Here also, you see the location of the mouth. These are the two cerebropleural and connected by the commissure above the esophagus. Location is here above the mouth, above the esophagus. Location is mouth is here. Mouth immediately leads to the esophagus, and it is surrounding the esophagus, which is the cerebral commissure. Okay. Each pleuropedal ganglia gives out the nerves. Nerves to the anterior adductor nerve. दिसते ही anterior adductor nerve. Anterior adductor nerve to the adductor muscle. Labial nerve to the labial palms. Immediately तिथं labial palms ला. And next one is the anterior pallial nerve. Anterior pallial nerve. See this. Anterior pallial nerve. Pallial मधली कशाला? To the mental. Now each cerebropleural ganglion is connected to the visceral ganglia posteriorly by cerebrovisceral connective. This is the visceral ganglia, this is the cerebropleural ganglia, and this is the connective, cerebrovisceral connective. These are the cerebropleural ganglia, these are the visceral ganglia, and these are the two cerebrovisceral connectives in the side view. You can see it. Okay. Now, next one is the pedal ganglia. Foot आहे इथं foot मध्ये असणारा pedal ganglia. Here, this is foot in the view, and this is the pedal ganglia, pair of pedal ganglia. They are located in the foot, dorsal to the muscular portion just below the visceral mass. Two pedal ganglia are closely united to form a bilobed mass. See, bilobed mass is there. Fuse झालेले दोन्ही एकत्र आहेत. Bilobed mass is there. They supply nerves to the muscle of foot and statocyst. Now, statocyst is the sense organ that we are going to study later. To the statocyst. Each pedal ganglia consists of cerebropleural ganglia of its side, or it is connected to the cerebropleural ganglia by cerebropedal connective. इथं सुद्धा connective. This is that connective. This is the pedal ganglia. त्याच्या साइडचा जो cerebropleural, this is pedal, They are connected by cerebropedal connective. They are connected by cerebropedal connective. Okay. Then next one is the visceral ganglia. Visceral. They are situated mid-ventrally. Hello? Visceral ganglia. Sorry for the interruption. Uh, they are situated mid-ventrally up to the posterior adductor muscles. They are fused to form the X-shaped mass. See, this is the X-shaped mass. This is the location. This is the posterior adductor muscle, and this is the location of the visceral ganglia. Now, what are the different branches of this? Dorsal pallial nerve to the dorsal mandible. आता त्याचे परत अशा वेगवेगळ्या ब्रँचेस आहेत. That there is a posterior palliar nerve to the posterior frontal, branchial nerve to the gills, cutineal nerve to the gills, renal to the kidney, and the posterior adductor muscle are the different nerves are supplied to the different organs. It is connected with the cerebropleural ganglia by of its side by the cerebropleural connectives. He connected cerebrovisceral connective. So, cerebrovisceral connective. It is not pleural, but it is cerebrovisceral connective. Cerebrovisceral connective, which runs through the kidneys, giving small nerve to the visceral mass. So, this is how the innervations are there made by the. The very interesting thing to note here that even though it is a pedal ganglia, even though it is a visceral ganglia, you will find that both of these ganglia, maybe a pedal, maybe visceral, they are communicating, they are connected to the cerebropleural ganglia by the respective connectives. Maybe the cerebropedal connective between the pedal and the cerebropleural, maybe the cerebrovisceral connective between the visceral and the cerebropedal ganglia. The word connective is used here, but here instead you will find the two similar ganglia here. Two cerebropleural ganglia, they are connected by cerebral commissure. When two similar ganglia are connected, then the word we are used here is the commissure. But when the two different ganglia are connected, then the word which is used here is the connective. These are the points that you should remember. Okay. Now, regarding the sense organs. Yes. Sense organs are also poorly developed because of the sluggish and the sedentary habitat. The eyes and tentacles are absent. This is very much important point that you should remember, that these tentacles and eyes are totally absent in case of eyeball. So what sense organs are there that we are going to study? One is the statocyst. Now this statocyst, where it is located? This is a pair of minute hollow vesicle, one on either side of the pedal ganglia. So in the sectional view, this structure it is shown like this. It's a vesicle. It is lined by the sensory cells. So these are the sensory cells are there, which contains the mass of the calcareous particles. So these are the calcareous particles called as statolith. This calcareous particle statolith is present, movement of which stimulate the sensory cell, and it is supplied by the nerve from the pedal ganglia. So what is the function? The function is it is an organ of equilibrium. As you have studied statocyst last year in case of pila, same is the function. In case of pila, also statocyst is also present there. and the function of the statosystem pile is also equilibrium. So whenever these calculus particles, they are whenever the animal changes its orientation, changes its position, then its particles, calcareous particles, they are moved, they are stimulated, they are leaving its place, and they are striking these sensory cells. And as the sensory cells are stimulated, the nerve impulse is carried by this statocystic nerve, which is a branch of the pid, and taken to the pedal ganglia. Pedal ganglia is connected with the cerebropleural ganglia. In this way, the message is taken towards this ganglia to correct the position. So next is the osphradium. Now these are a pair of ventral yellow patches of sensory cells at the base of the gills on the ventral surface of the posterior adductor muscles and covering the visceral ganglia. So, see, ospedum is not an organ as such, but it is in the patch of the sensory cells. So what is the function? Probably it is testing the chemical nature of the water. So, as it is, this its location is near the uh, inhalant siphon where the water enters. So entering water which is entering into the mental cavity through its inhalant siphon, there itself the chemical nature of this water is tested, and if the water is uh, fresh or it is palatable, then and only then the water is allowed to enter. Otherwise, it closes its inhalant siphon and avoids the entry of that water, which is not feasible, which is not tasty for the bivalve to take into the body. Random sensory cells are also located on the edge of the mental lobes. They are abundant on the inhalant siphon. See, inhalant siphon also has the sensory cells, and these are probably sensitive to the touch as well as they are sensitive to the light. Also play the role of photoreceptor. receptor. So these are the different sense organs which are present in the. So this is what we have also covered this nervous system as well as the sense organs in the body. If you have any questions, you may ask me if you want to know any queries regarding this. Yes.
No, sir.
Have you followed?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Uh, so if you don't have any questions, we'll stop here. Shall we stop?
Yes, sir.
Okay.